Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you on this video. I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 3. The episode is called Jinaal. Full spoilers from the start of this review, and it's going to be a pretty short review because this was a really dull episode, I've got to say. Not a lot really happened. It's one of those episodes, really, where you can say, okay, this happened, but really it didn't amount to a lot, or it didn't really shake up things that much and change things. So the main plot of the episode is then the next stage of this mission to unlock this mystery for the team is on Trill, the home planet of Adira. So that gives her an opportunity to reconnect with Gray, who she hasn't seen for months. So their relationship gets brought back up and where they stand. But what it amounts to is they make this contact, Jinaal of the title, who's an ancient person who's passed on many years ago but is still there in spirit. And they need to perform this traditional Trill ceremony so that a person, in this case they choose Coburn, can take the form, Jinaal can take the form of one of the human beings, so that Coburn volunteers himself for that task. So then the idea is then taking human form means Jinaal can guide Michael and Booker to this next clue, and that becomes the mission. And as I said, there's some personal stuff with Adira and Gray and where they stand. So the best stuff in the episode, I think, is the stuff with Coburn, and there's some funny comedy stuff with him renting out his body to this Jinaal character. The stuff where Jinaal is like, oh yeah, this guy works out, so happy with the body. And the stuff where he keeps teasing Michael and Book convinces Michael then he should come along because they're talking about him having a personal connection to Maul. And Michael is doubting that at first, like, is this really a good idea? Like, maybe you're too close to it. But he paints it as this is a personal mission and it's something I have to do. And that'll give me focus. So Michael eventually agrees. But as I said, there is some fun with Jinaal and her enjoying Coburn's body. Her sort of teasing, like, because at one point they come across these like fire breathing creatures, very CGI creatures, of course, but they come across them and they're blocking the way to the next key, and there's a whole thing where she didn't tell them, and it's like, yeah, you might have mentioned that at some point, and just a lot of playing about. So that stuff is quite good fun, but it's also quite frustrating because it just feels like a way to pad out the plot or pad out the running time and just drag things on a little bit. Because at the same time as that character is having fun playing with Book and Michael, it also feels like it's playing with the audience, and it doesn't feel like there's enough of a reason to extend this. Like, it just feels like a contrived excuse why it's not just giving them the information they want. And this is what I said last week about there's a danger of this season feeling quite repetitive, because it feels like they're going to be going on these similar missions each week, and that at the end of it, it'll just be the predictable outcome, and not a lot will change. You won't get a lot of shake-up. So this one, although there was some fun stuff with the characters, like, we didn't really see that much than we haven't seen before. And as I said, the pacing was a little bit plodding, and there was a lack of action, but when we got the action, it wasn't particularly good. I wouldn't say like as I said, these fire-breathing monsters, very CGI, and the CGI. I guess the CG was okay, but I didn't really like the look of it, and it just led to a very predictable Discovery type scene, like action scene, and in the end, it came down to Jinaal giving them this tech, which he says he'd been. I think it's a she. Sorry, she has been protecting all these years. Like at the time that she could have gave it to Picard when he came looking for it, but says he didn't want to take a risk of it falling into the wrong hands. Wasn't sure if she could like trust Picard, so in the end, like, kept it aside. And there's this whole thing where it turns out then he knew they were going into the nest of these creatures, because it turns out there's more than one, and her and Book in the end have to retreat and have to negotiate with them. So ultimately they choose communication, not action. And that's what Jinaal was doing. It was a test to see if they could communicate with the creatures. And that way she just gives them the tech in the end. And that side of it is okay, because it's a very Star Trek thing to do and a very Star Trek idea. But it also brings up another problem with the episode, because you have this thing about communication throughout the episode and relationships, but the problem is it just once again hits you over the head with this stuff. Like, it's not really subtle writing, and yeah, it's just overcooked really, and I don't think they do that much than they're interested in it. And in a way, them just eventually they get this tech because they pass the test almost. So it's almost like they've been played with the way the audience has been played with. And to me, that is just like lazy writing, really. The stuff with Adira and Gray, I didn't really get into. I thought that was quite boring, because at the end of the day, they decide to split up because they feel like their relationship in its current form doesn't really have much of a future. And it was just pretty dull. Like, I'm not really that invested in these characters, unfortunately, even though I like the ideas behind them. At the end, it does, because Adira stays for a ceremony, so it hints that maybe there could be a future, but that's part of the wraparound. And then there is this twist where we see more at the end. So she's underneath a cloak, so she's undercover, and that's a twist, and she's there at the ceremony. So yeah, pick up with that next time, I guess. But a little bit of a twist there at the end, which was pretty good. We also get stuff with Saru in his first day at his new assignment. So we get some drama with him and Trinian, because they take this vote, this diplomatic vote to do with another culture, and Trinian votes the same way as Saru, and it helps him win the vote. And his new superior, who is acting heelish from the moment he comes on screen, just suggests that Trinian was voting the same way as Saru because of their relationship, and that it could actually hurt his career, hurt her career maybe, particularly his career. And Saru then gets nervous about them announcing their engagement, and he goes to Trinian about it, and she just stands firm and says, no, we're not having this, we shouldn't compromise. And later on she says to him, it actually is more of a compromise, and it actually looks worse if we're not open about our relationship, which is probably right. So Saru comes around to her way of thinking, but that stuff, it's just needless drama. Like, again, it feels very sort of soap opera, and the sort of thing I'm not that interested in a Star Trek. Like, I don't know if this is going to be the main stuff with Saru, then I'm happy really just to phase his storyline and character out at this point, since it's the last season. But I guess he's on the cast list, so they're going to keep doing things with him. I speculated in episode 1 review, then, is this going to be a twist? Like, is there going to be some sort of villain reveal with Trinian? I just got that feeling for whatever reason, but no hint of it in this episode, of course. But we'll see where things lead. But that wasn't really interesting to me, and neither was the stuff with Rayner outside of 1 or 2 moments. So he's got his first day as in his new position as the new number 1, and he's used to being very hands-on when it comes to going on missions and stuff. But Michael says that he needs to stick around and stay on board, and that he needs to interact with his new crew and get to know them. And Tilly's involved in that, in bringing them all in, and they have a set amount of time to try and impress him with their theories on the mission. And that just feels like a very sitcom kind of sketchy sort of scene, with them all trying to impress him, and he's giving his unimpressed Frosty reactions. I think Tilly is really wasted in this episode, and has been in the season so far. I do like the moment where she gives him some shit back for not respecting them, and hey, they've got a lot of talent, you should respect that. That was pretty good, and she gives him advice about how engaging with your crew is a big part of being a good captain. And he comes to her later in the bar and admits that he does admire them and sees qualities in them, but then he wants their respect type thing. So they sort of broach that a bit by the end, and it's part of the whole emotional wraparound. But once again, the writing is very much on the nose, and like I said, I think Rayner as a character has potential, but I hope they do a bit better with him than this. And I hope they give Tilly more to do as well as the season goes on. But this was just a really dull episode for me. I don't think there was a lot of really good drama, and I don't think the mission, as I said, Coburn renting out his body was probably the highlight of the episode, but besides that, it's pretty dull stuff for me. It was quite a plodding episode. So that's Star Trek Discovery for the week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always, and you can support me for a little bit extra at patreon.com/borednow for just $1 a month. But keep watching TV, keep watching Star Trek. See you guys soon. Bye.